We were moving my daughter and her fiance from Massachusetts to Colorado, and I live actually in southern Arkansas. So this was kind of a big deal for me to move them from, she lives in Colorado, he lives in Massachusetts. So we were moving them in together. They had had an online relationship to this point, but they were going to move in together in person. So we were being supportive and we wanted to move them in together. So we left and we went to Massachusetts to pick up the my soon-to-be son-in-law and meet him for the first time, actually, and move his things to Colorado. Sorry, I'm nervous. We got there and we met, and we got all of his things loaded in this trailer that we had rented. And we loaded the trailer, and the hotel that we had rented was a town over from where his things were. So we were driving to go to our hotel, and my air conditioner quit working in my truck. So it was a weekday, but it was late in the day, and the only place open at that point was Firestone. So I called them and I asked if they had time to look at my truck and find out why my air conditioner wasn't working. And they said, sure, bring it right in, and they could look at it right then. I was super happy, excited, because no mechanic can usually get you in that quick. That should have been a sign to me. If a mechanic can get you in, that means they're not very popular, right? That should have been a sign. But I was just excited someone could get me in, because it was also right before a holiday. I think it was maybe Memorial Day. But it was right before a holiday this all happened. And so every other place was like backed up also and blocked up because of the holidays. Well, they brought it in, and immediately they tell me that my car had overheated. Well, my car had never overheated on the gauges. So I called that into question, and I was like, but my car never overheated on the gauges. So I think they saw me, a female traveling, pulling a trailer, and like just immediately thought, let's throw everything in the book at her. And I was like, but my car never overheated on the gauges. And I grew up and I had brothers, and I had a dad who was insistent that I learn about vehicles before he would let me take the road. So I wasn't just an ignorant female hitting the road, so to speak. When he started talking to me about my car, I actually understood what he was saying. And but when he told me my car had overheated, and it was in a pre-log that only they could see with their computer, I couldn't exactly argue with that because I didn't have access to their computer records. So I was like, okay. I said, so what does that mean? He says, it means you need a new water pump. Well, I was like, I need a new water pump. Okay. I said, so what would happen if I drove it like it is? And I need my plug for my battery, please, Zach. And he said, well, you would warp your motor and your car would burn up and it would die. I did know that that was the right answer, but I was just kind of testing his knowledge to see if he was going to be honest with me. And I said, okay. I said, fair enough. I said, all right, well, how much would that be? So he said, he went and he did some figuring and stuff, and he came back out and he told me $3,500 to change a water pump. I was in shock. Like, a water pump, maybe it's, it shouldn't have cost that much. What I would have guessed would have been like $800 to $1,000 at the most. But he informed me that the year, make, and model vehicle that I have, a 2016 Ford Explorer, has the water pump inside of the engine. So the entire engine would have to be taken apart for the water pump to be changed. And I was like, oh, okay, well, wow, that's something. And it never overheated on the gauges, though. And he said, yeah, that's in the pre-logs, though. I was like, okay, well, you caught me coming and going. And I was like, and I have to have it done. And he's like, yeah. And I said, and that'll fix my air conditioner, right? He said, no. He said, you're still going to need a new air conditioner because we tested it and yes, they had tested it and the compressor wasn't compressing. So he said I would need a new air conditioner. And if we wanted to hurry up and get back on the road, because by this point, this had been a couple of days now, we're starting to get late fees on the rented trailer that we had rented. And it's a holiday weekend. Like, we're getting fees from every direction, all kinds of stuff, because we're starting to run days behind on our trip. He told me I had to get a new air conditioner. So it was going to cost me almost like $9,000 to get my truck fixed. And I was just like, I don't have that kind of money. I'm retired. I'm a retired former federal officer. I'm medically retired. I was injured in the line of duty. You know, I am retired. I don't have tens of thousands of dollars laying around to just hand out for a truck repair. Like, I had to borrow the money from a friend of mine that was traveling with me. I was like, okay, well, anyway, he kept insisting I needed all this work done. I was like, all right, if you say it needs done and it has to be done and I have to do this to get on with my trip, because my son-in-law is missing work all this time because his work computer is in that trailer. And my daughter is missing work because all of her stuff is in that trailer too. So like, everyone's life is on hold because of this trailer that I'm pulling with my truck. And all of my son-in-law's important paperwork is in this truck, like his birth certificate is, they just did not realize that you don't pack that kind of stuff and leave it in a trailer. They didn't ask our advice when they were packing the trailer. You know how young people are. So they had packed on their own and they had all their important stuff in this trailer. So they were stressing that we needed to get back on the road and get going. They were missing work and they didn't have the money to be off work like that. They were paying rent in 2 places at this point. And I couldn't do anything to earn extra money because, you know, I'm a reseller. I buy things and resell them to make ends meet because I just live on a fixed income. So I didn't have extra money coming in all this time that we're stuck in Massachusetts while they're screwing up my vehicle. So the next morning we went to pick up my vehicle and they said, oh, you have to pay for that. I wanted to hear my vehicle before we paid for it. I wanted to hear how it ran because they said it was ready. And it wasn't the next day. It was a few days later. And they said, no, you have to pay for it first. And I was like, well, that's not typical. And they were like, oh, yeah, you have to pay for it first. So they would not give me my keys until we paid for it. And we started it and it wouldn't start. And then we started it and it made a grinding, grabbing, grainy sound. A sound I immediately recognized as a messed up timing chain. And I said, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. We turned it off. And I went inside and I said, what happened to my truck? And the guy said, well, nothing. We fixed it. However it is how it got here. And I said, what? I said, we brought it here to get it fixed and have it running. I said, that timing chain is messed up. I said, it's not running right. I said, I said, here, listen, because I had recorded it when we went to start it. And by this point, I'm making a habit of recording everything that everyone is saying around me and telling them, I am recording you. And I want you to know I'm recording you because I want to be able to use this later if it comes up. and I'm making sure they know they're being recorded. And I have all of this recorded, and I can give y'all all the recordings if you want them. And so I told them, I said, that's not how my truck was running when it got here. I said, here, let me show you. And I loaded the video from the morning I dropped it off, and I played it for him. And I said, look how good my truck is running. This is me dropping it off. I said, you can't even tell it ever overheated like your guy said it did. And he started backtracking immediately. And he said, oh, well, earlier today when we were putting the engine back together, the mechanic accidentally broke your timing chain. And he tried to put it back together real quick, and we went and get another timing chain. And I was like, and y'all didn't think to stop and call me and tell me y'all did that to my truck? I said, more than that, you were going to sit here and try to put the blame on me and say my truck got here in that condition? No, that's not how we play this game. I was like, that is wrong on so many levels. So many levels. I am going to blast you from here to the end of the earth and let everyone know what you just tried to do here tonight. This is wrong. This is so wrong. And I have severe PTSD from dealing with bad people for a long time. But this guy was just such a scumbag that I was dealing with at this moment. He put me into a very bad PTSD attack. Like, even talking about it right now, I'm struggling a bit. When he started backpedaling and he was like, well, that wasn't what I was exactly saying. I said, no, that was exactly what you were saying, sir. You said my truck arrived in the shape it was in right now, and that is not how it arrived. Then you proceeded to explain to me how your mechanic broke the timing chain and then tried to repair it, and y'all weren't even going to tell me about it. And you insisted that I pay for the repair before y'all would give me the keys. No, y'all, this was a total setup. This was a total screw up, a total setup. Well, after that, I called the manager. I would not talk to anybody else. I said, I'm not talking to anybody else but the head manager. I talked to the manager. He was reluctant to help me. But I finally convinced him. I was like, this is y'all's mistake. Y'all are going to fix it. And he said, okay. And he did immediately give us some kind of petty cash that they had in the register. I don't remember. It was a few $100s or whatever. So we could get a hotel and get food for the night and whatever. Cause we had been using my friend's charge cards to this point, cause we hadn't planned for, an extra week and all of this other stay that this had just drug over into. And so he did give us the petty cash out the register, and he said, I'm going to open a claim and we're going to report it to actual corporate. Well, I thought that was going to make things easier. That made it 10 times worse, because at that point is when a lady named Jillian got involved. And she told us that if we would continue to charge it on our cards and pay for everything up front, they would reimburse us at the end, and it would be a real easy process. And so she said, pay for your food, but they would only pay for a single room, one single room that we had to share. Now, I was traveling with my 16-year-old service dog. She did not need to be on the road that long. We thought it was going to be a quick little round trip, her last big trip around the world, because I knew she was old and she didn't need to travel again. But this was dragging on, and it was stressing her out. And at the end of that trip, she did come home and die. That was horrible. That was the worst. And that lady Jillian knew that I was traveling with my service animal and I needed to get home. And she did not care. She had no heart about it. She didn't care that it was dragging out, that the repairs were dragging out. Those repairs drug out for 3 weeks. They kept dragging our repairs out, insisting at first that I make the person who broke my truck have a whole chance at repairing it again. And he did a terrible job at repairing it. They called me again a few days later and told me, oh, it's repaired. I went pick it up. It wouldn't go over 40. At that point, I said, I've had enough. And I drove to the nearest dealership and I said, I want my truck fixed. I don't care what it costs. And I'm telling you, Firestone's going to pay for it. And that dealership called Firestone and asked them if they would pay for it. And Jillian tried to take the credit and say, oh, it was all her idea. It was not her idea. I drove to that dealership and said, please fix my truck. Jillian had nothing to do with that. But she told the dealership it was her idea. It was not her idea. That woman treated us like dirt from day one. She tricked us into using our cards and charging everything on our cards, and she's like, oh, it'll be an easy process. She said, y'all go, y'all have a good time, y'all take in some movies, y'all have a few drinks, whatever, y'all relax and enjoy your time there, and we'll reimburse you. So we did buy a little bit of alcohol, and I needed some clothes because we went there with like 3 changes of clothes, and we were there for almost a month. So I bought a little bit of clothes on there. Anyway, she sends me this real nasty email. We won't pay for alcohol. We won't pay for clothes. We won't pay for dog food. We won't pay. I was there with my dog. I had to feed her. Like, she was just pay for nothing, reimburse us for anything. They don't even want to reimburse us for the whole time of the late fees of the U-Haul trailer. She said absolutely not. She'll only reimburse us for certain days. She cut it to where they're not reimbursing us hardly anything. And then she's like, sign this or else you're not getting anything, period. And you can jump in a lake. And when I said, no, that's not fair. I'm not. And then she won't give us anything for all the time we was trapped there. Mike couldn't work. My daughter couldn't work. Her fiance couldn't work. I couldn't do anything to earn any money. I fell a whole month behind on my mortgage. I'm still a month behind on my mortgage. My credit has suffered tremendously. I'm 150 points down. It's affecting everything in my life because of these people. It has been a waterfall roller coaster. It's affecting my marriage because I had to share a room with a male friend of mine. We were traveling together, but until that point, we had been each having our own room where we were staying at the hotels. But he couldn't afford to pay for 2 rooms for an unlimited amount of time. So Firestone would only pay for 1 room. So we got a room that had a couch in it, but it was a single room, me and a male friend sharing, and it bothered my husband, and I understand that. But Jillian didn't care. She wasn't paying for 2 rooms. And it's affected us in every aspect of our lives. It affected mine and my friend's friendship too, because we got on each other's nerves because we don't like each other like that. We're not friends that were meant to live together. We're like traveling buddies. It affected everything. And then she says our time wasn't worth anything. Well, let me tell you, when I was employed and working and a federal officer, I was making a lot of money a year, lady. A lot of money a year. You owe me at least a month's salary. And then my friend that was a Fed, he was also a Fed. He was making a lot of money a month. A lot. And then she wants to act like she gives us $2,000 and we should be thankful. No, that's not how this should work. She literally wasted a month of my life and cost my dog her life. And there's no amount of money that can cover that.